Have you ever wondered, why do you keep falling in love with the same type of person only to end up with the same heartbreak, the same disappointment, the same emotional storm? It feels almost like destiny, doesn't it? As if some unseen hand is writing your love story on repeat. But what if it isn't destiny at all? What if it's your shadow quietly pulling the strings? Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Think about that for a moment. How many times have you said, "I'll never let that happen again," only to wake up months later inside the very same cycle? Different face, same story. Different name, same wound. It's not that you're cursed. It's that a hidden part of you, your shadow, is choosing for you. The shadow is not evil. It is not your enemy. It is simply the part of you that you refuse to see, the part you've pushed away, denied, or buried. But the shadow has one mission: to be known. And in love, it will make sure you face it, whether you want to or not. That's why you meet partners who mirror your deepest fears, your unhealed wounds, and your forgotten desires. The question is, are you ready to stop calling it fate and start calling it shadow work? Are you willing to turn inward and see the patterns that have been writing your love story all along? Because if you are, then this journey will take you from confusion to clarity, from heartbreak to wholeness. Let's step into the dark together and discover why love keeps showing you the shadow you've been trying to escape. When people hear the phrase shadow work, many imagine something mysterious, even frightening. But at its heart, shadow work is simply the practice of turning toward the hidden parts of yourself, the emotions you suppress, the desires you deny, the fears you'd rather not admit. In Jungian psychology, the shadow is not darkness for the sake of darkness. It is the unlived life, the rejected self, the unspoken truth. And nowhere does it reveal itself more clearly than in love. Love exposes us. It strips away our masks. In the beginning, it feels magical. The rush of connection, the intoxicating chemistry, the dream of being truly seen. But soon, something deeper emerges. Old patterns, familiar conflicts, the same arguments and disappointments you swore you would never repeat. Why? Because love is the most powerful mirror. It reflects not only your beauty and kindness, but also the parts of yourself you've disowned. This is why relationships can feel both exhilarating and unbearable. One moment you're overflowing with joy. The next you're triggered by something small yet strangely familiar. That familiarity is the shadow knocking at the door. Jung reminds us that what we do not face within ourselves, we inevitably project onto others. In romance, that projection becomes a stage where your unconscious wounds perform the same story again and again. But here is the paradox. The shadow is not trying to ruin your love life. It is trying to heal it. Every repeated pattern is an invitation. Every heartbreak is a teacher. When you keep attracting the same type of partner, it is not punishment. It is a signal from the unconscious saying, "Here is the lesson you must finally learn." So why does this matter today, in our modern world of swipes, texts, and endless options? Because technology may change how we meet, but it does not change what we seek. Beneath the surface, every human being longs for wholeness. And until you face the shadow in love, you will confuse longing with destiny. You will keep searching for the right partner without realizing the real search is inward. The purpose of shadow work in love is not to eliminate conflict or guarantee a perfect relationship. Its purpose is to reveal the hidden author of your love stories, your unconscious self. Once you see it, the script changes. You are no longer bound to repeat. You can choose. You can love from awareness, not from compulsion. And that choice, conscious love, is where true transformation begins. Once upon a time, in a forgotten kingdom, there lived a young traveler who wandered through forests in search of love. Every night, he carried a lantern, hoping its light would guide him to the partner of his dreams. And indeed, the lantern always led him to someone: bright eyes, gentle smile, the promise of love fulfilled. But there was one problem. Every time the traveler lit his lantern, a shadow grew behind him. At first, he ignored it. After all, who wants to pay attention to shadows when the light feels so warm? Yet the shadow followed him everywhere. And each new love ended the same way. The smile would fade, the warmth would turn cold, and the traveler would feel abandoned once more. "Why does this keep happening?" he cried to the night sky, and the wind whispered back, "Because you follow the light without ever turning to face what walks behind you." This old story is our story. In love, we are all the traveler. We seek the lantern of connection, the glow of intimacy, the flame of passion. And yes, it leads us toward beautiful experiences. But the brighter the light, the darker the shadow we cast. And unless we dare to turn and look, that shadow will find its way into every relationship we touch. Carl Jung described this paradox with profound simplicity. The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. Love transforms us, but not always in the way we expect. What begins as magic often becomes struggle, not because we chose wrongly, but because the shadow insists on being part of the story. Think of it like a mirror maze. You walk in, searching for the exit, but everywhere you turn you meet reflections, some flattering, some distorted. Each partner is one of those mirrors. Some reflect your kindness, others your jealousy. Some reflect your tenderness, others your rage. If you keep smashing the mirrors, blaming them for the distortions, you miss the truth. The image is yours. So, the traveler's lesson and ours is simple but difficult. Love is not just about finding the light. It is about daring to turn around, to face the shadow trailing you, and to realize, this too is me. Only then can love stop repeating the same haunting pattern. Only then can the lantern of connection guide you not into the same heartbreak, but into a deeper wholeness. Have you noticed how love often begins with fire, an intensity so strong it feels like destiny? You meet someone, and within moments your heart races, your mind spins, and you tell yourself, this must be it. But intensity is not always love. Many times, it is your shadow recognizing something familiar, an old wound, a hidden story, an unresolved lesson. That magnetic pull is less about the person in front of you and more about the unfinished business within you. When attraction feels like an unstoppable force, it may not be fate, it may be repetition. And then, after the rush of passion fades, you begin to recognize another pattern. Different faces, different names, yet the same arguments return. One person leaves you feeling unseen. Another overwhelms you with attention until you can't breathe. Someone accuses you of being too distant. Someone else of being too needy. The roles change, but the play remains the same. This is not coincidence. It is your unconscious writing the script. Your partners become mirrors, reflecting back the parts of yourself you'd rather avoid. Perhaps the most painful sign of all is the cycle of idealization and disillusionment. At the beginning, your partner appears perfect, almost divine. You place them on a pedestal, certain they are the one who will finally complete you. But soon the cracks appear. Small flaws become unbearable. The pedestal crumbles, and you find yourself once again disappointed, asking, why does this keep happening? The truth is that you were never seeing them clearly. In the glow of infatuation, you projected your own light onto them. And when disappointment came, you projected your own darkness. In both cases, you weren't loving the person you were wrestling with your shadow. When you look closely, these repeating signs are not punishments. They are invitations. The shadow is not trying to destroy your love life. It is asking to be seen. Every powerful attraction, every repeated conflict, every swing between worship and disappointment is a door. And behind that door lies the part of yourself you've been trying to escape. The moment you dare to open it, the pattern begins to break. Sometimes the shadow does not reveal itself in obvious explosions of conflict. Sometimes it whispers, hiding in the small choices you make, in the subtle ways you give yourself away. If you look closely, 3 more signs begin to emerge, signs that your shadow is still directing the story of your relationships. The first is silence. Not the peaceful silence of comfort, but the heavy silence of repression. You hold back your true feelings, not because you have nothing to say, but because you fear being rejected, judged, or abandoned. You swallow your anger, you disguise your needs, you smile when you want to cry. On the surface, you appear loving and agreeable, but inside, resentment builds like a storm. Eventually, it erupts or it drives the other person away without explanation. When love requires you to bury your voice, it is not love, it is the shadow keeping you invisible. The second is projection. You see in your partner what you cannot accept in yourself. You accuse them of being selfish when, deep down, it is your own desire you have buried. You blame them for being controlling when, secretly, you fear your own need for power. You call them emotionally cold when, in truth, you are terrified of your own vulnerability. Projection makes the relationship a hall of mirrors. You are not only fighting them, you are fighting the parts of yourself you have disowned. And until you claim those parts, every argument will feel endless. The third is the return of hidden desires. You tell yourself you want stability, yet you keep chasing excitement. You swear you're ready for commitment, yet part of you longs for freedom. You promise yourself you've moved on, yet you are pulled back into old temptations. The shadow does not forget. What you deny will find a way to surface through secret fantasies, through sudden cravings, through the choices that shock even you. Desire is not the enemy, but when you bury it, it controls you from the dark. Repression, projection, and hidden desires, these are the quiet architects of repeated heartbreak. They are the silent contracts you sign without knowing. And the moment you bring them into the light, something shifts. You realize that the enemy was never your partner, never the relationship, never even love itself. It was the shadow asking for recognition. Once you see that, the power to choose returns. And love, for the first time, begins to feel like freedom. By now, the patterns are clear. The shadow shows itself through intense attraction, repeated conflicts, silences, projections, and hidden desires. But what comes next? Awareness alone is not enough. You cannot simply point at the shadow and expect transformation. You must integrate it, invite it back into your life, not as an enemy, but as a forgotten ally. There are 3 lessons that open this door. The first lesson is to name what has been hidden. Every time you notice yourself pulled into the same fight, the same attraction, the same disappointment, pause and ask, what part of me is speaking here? Is it the child afraid of being abandoned? Is it the part that craves power? Is it the tender self that longs to be seen? To name the shadow is to strip it of its invisibility. Once you call it out, it no longer controls you from the dark. It becomes a voice you can listen to. The second lesson is to own your projection. Instead of blaming your partner for being too cold, too needy, too controlling, dare to look within. Ask yourself, where does this live in me? This question is uncomfortable, but it is also liberating. The moment you recognize that what irritates you most in others often belongs to you, the cycle shifts. Projection turns into reflection. The mirror no longer imprisons you, it teaches you. The third lesson is to embrace paradox. The shadow is not meant to be destroyed. You cannot erase your anger, your desire, your fear, but you can hold them alongside your love, your tenderness, your joy. Integration is not about perfection, it is about wholeness. To be whole is to say, yes, this too is me, and still, I choose to love. When you carry both light and shadow, your relationships stop being a battlefield. They become a sanctuary where truth can breathe. These lessons are not quick fixes, they are practices, repeated in the small moments of daily love. The pause before reacting, the courage to speak your truth, the humility to see yourself in the mirror of another. With every choice to integrate rather than reject, the shadow transforms. It no longer drags you into repetition, it walks beside you as a guide. And love, no longer chained to old wounds, begins to flow with a new freedom. Carl Jung once wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." These words are more than philosophy, they are a map. In love, we often chase the light ideal partners, perfect romance, the fantasy of completion. But true transformation does not come from chasing brightness. It comes from daring to face the shadows that shape our choices. Why is this so important? Because love is not only about pleasure, it is about truth. And truth always carries paradox. You long for intimacy, yet fear being seen. You desire freedom, yet crave security. You hope for unconditional acceptance, yet secretly judge yourself. These contradictions are not mistakes. They are the natural tension of being human. The shadow lives in these tensions, waiting for you to acknowledge them instead of pretending they don't exist. Modern culture often teaches us to avoid discomfort. We scroll, distract, swipe, and escape. But avoidance keeps us shallow. Jung's insight was that wholeness demands depth, and depth requires courage. When you face your shadow in love, you are not just healing relationships. You are reclaiming fragments of your own soul. Every heartbreak, every trigger, every repeated pattern is not a punishment, but an initiation. You are being invited to grow into a greater self, one who can hold both darkness and light without denying either. This is the deeper secret. The shadow is not against you. It is for you. It drags you into repeating cycles, not to torment you, but to reveal the lessons you refuse to see. It mirrors your wounds, not to shame you, but to remind you they still exist. And it whispers through every attraction and disappointment. Look here. Here is where your wholeness waits. So the question is no longer, how do I avoid the shadow? The real question is, am I willing to walk with it? Imagine love not as a battlefield, but as a temple. In that temple, your light and your shadow stand side by side. Your partner is not there to complete you, nor to rescue you, but to reflect the parts of yourself that long to be integrated. To love consciously is to accept this sacred task, to meet yourself through the mirror of another, to embrace your contradictions without fear, and to discover that the deepest intimacy begins not with another person, but with yourself. Jung's philosophy is clear. Only by facing what is hidden can we ever find what is whole. So we return to the question we began with. Why do you keep repeating the same patterns in love? The answer is not fate, not bad luck, not even the wrong choice of partners. The answer is the shadow, your unconscious longing to be seen, healed, and integrated. We have walked through the signs, the irresistible pull of attraction that feels like destiny, the recurring conflicts that replay like an old script, the silence of repression, the maze of projections, the hidden desires that resurface, and finally, the invitation to integrate what you have disowned. Each step was not meant to shame you, but to awaken you. These patterns are not your prison, they are your teachers. Jung reminds us that until we make the unconscious conscious, it will direct our lives and we will call it fate. But once you see the shadow, once you name it, once you invite it into your awareness, you are no longer a prisoner of repetition. You become a creator. Love shifts from compulsion to choice, from confusion to clarity, from heartbreak to wholeness. And this is the promise of shadow work, to transform love from a cycle of wounds into a path of awakening. Imagine a relationship where you are no longer afraid of your anger, ashamed of your needs, or terrified of your vulnerability. Imagine being able to say, yes, this too is me, and still, I choose to love. That is conscious love. That is love that liberates. So now the choice is yours. You can continue running from the shadow, chasing new partners, hoping the pattern will magically change. Or you can turn inward, embrace what you have denied, and finally write a different story. If this message speaks to you, don't let it end here. Share in the comments what patterns you've noticed in your own love life. Which lessons are calling to you most strongly? And if you're ready to go deeper, subscribe to this channel because the journey doesn't stop here. Together, we will continue exploring Jung's wisdom, diving into the mysteries of the psyche, and learning how to bring light to the places we've kept in the dark. Your shadow is not your curse, it is your invitation. Accept it, and love will no longer be a loop of repetition. It will become the very path that leads you to wholeness,